Well, good morning. I am so glad to be here with you.
Dobro jutro. Tako mi je drago što mogu biti s vama ovog jutra.
My family and I love Croatia.
Moja obitelj i ja volimo Hrvatsku.
And part of what we love about Croatia is this church.
A ono što volimo u Hrvatskoj je ova crkva.
We feel home here partly because we've been here with you several times.
Volimo biti ovdje jer smo bili ovdje već nekoliko puta.
And but mostly because you are our brothers and sisters.
Ali najviše zbog toga što ste braće i sestre.
Even those of you who we have not yet met.
Čak i vi koje još nismo upoznali.
This Friday, as Steve said, we are doing a parent seminar.
Ovog petka radimo jedan seminar za roditelje.
Jennifer and I have presented this seminar this summer in America.
I ovaj seminar smo već radili u Americi ovog ljeta, Jennifer i ja.
And we're so excited to bring it to your parents and even to grandparents who want to come.
I uzbuđeni smo što možemo to onda prenijeti i k vama i roditeljima, a također i bakama i djedovima.
Most of what we talk about is going to be centered in the idea that story is a powerful tool God wants you to use in your family.
Najviše ćemo se usredotočiti na ideju da je priča ta koja je moćan alat da bi se usredotočilo na Božju priču.
Some parenting seminars make you just feel really guilty.
Neki seminari o roditeljstvu vas samo učine da osjećate krivnju.
This is not one of those.
A ovo nije jedan od takvih.
Parents are already working hard. We want to make your parenting easier.
I roditelji već i onako naporno rade, a mi vam želimo olakšati vaše roditeljstvo.
So we're excited to be with you Friday beginning at 6 p.m. We would love for you to come.
I zato voljeli bi da vas vidimo u petak u 6 popodne.
Okay, this morning I want to tell you about a surprising prayer that someone prayed generations ago.
I ovog jutra želim vam govoriti o jednoj iznenađujućoj molitvi koju je netko molio već prije puno generacija.
And I want to tell you why you and I should pray that prayer today.
I htio bih vam reći zašto bi mi trebali moliti danas takvu molitvu.
Even though it's scary.
Iako je ona zastrašujuća.
So late in the first century, about 60 years after Jesus' death and resurrection.
Znači tamo negdje u prvom stoljeću, 60 godina nakon što je Isus umro, bio smaknut i što je uskrsnuo.
The apostle John, who was one of Jesus' closest followers,
apostol Ivan, koji je bio jedan od Isusovih najbližih sljedbenika,
he got in trouble with the law because he was preaching about Jesus.
On je došao u sukob sa zakonom zato jer je propovijedao Isusa.
And the Roman authorities operating under the emperor Domitian,
i rimske vlasti koje su bile pod carom
Domitian, yeah.
Zaboravio sam koji je naš naziv.
They wanted John out of the city of Ephesus.
Oni su htjeli da Ivan izađe iz grada Efeza.
And so they exiled him to a small Greek island called Patmos.
I tako su ga stavili u progonstvo na jedan mali grčki otok Patmos.
And maybe some of you have been to Patmos. You can visit there today.
I neki od vas možete i posjetiti taj otok.
And you can see some of the ruins of what John would have seen during his time there.
I možete vidjeti ruševine koje se nalaze tamo još od vremena, od Ivanovog vremena.
There's an acropolis there, there's a temple or two.
Tamo je akropola, tamo je hram.
And even the port, which was key to Patmos's development because it was on a main shipping route.
Čak i luka koja se tamo nalazila bila je važna luka za transport brodova.
But the proconsul of Asia Minor wanted John away, so he sent him to Patmos, but he would still be under his jurisdiction.
I tako je ovaj prokonzul Male Azije htio da maknuti Ivana od sebe, ali opet da je još negdje pod njegovom vlašću.
So John is there, it's Sunday, and he's outside praying.
Ivan je vani, on se moli.
And while he's praying, he sees this vision given to him by God.
I dok se moli, on dobiva viziju od Boga.
And God tells him to write down what he sees.
I Bog mu daje da zapiše ono što vidi.
And what John writes, the record of what he sees that day,
I ono što Ivan zapisuje, ono što vidi tog dana,
it comes to be known in the language of the time as the apocalypsis.
I ono što s vremenom postaje poznato je otkrivenje.
Or the laying bare, or the appearance.
Ili nešto što je razotkriveno, nešto što se pojavilo.
Or as it's popularly translated, the revelation.
Ili kao što se to popularno prevodi otkrivenje.
So here is the scene. It's been 66 years since that day that John arrived at the tomb.
I 66 godina od kad je Ivan došao do grobnice.
He got to the tomb after Jesus had died, sweating and scared and confused.
I došao je do te grobnice nakon što je Isus uskrsnuo, bio je znojan, prestrašen, zbunjen.
And he was about to discover that his friend Jesus was in fact alive again.
I on je otkrio nakon toga da je njegov prijatelj Isus živ, opet oživio.
And in that discovery, he would discover that his friend Jesus was everything he claimed to be.
I u tom otkriću on je otkrio da je Isus sve ono što je on tvrdio da jest.
So since that day, it's been 6.5 decades.
I nakon toga nekih 6,5 desetljeća
He's been teaching and leading in the church.
on poučava i vodi crkvu.
He's been watching the struggles and victories of person after person play out before him.
I on gleda i borbe i pobjede osobe nakon osobu za osobom.
Years of praying for transformation and for revival.
Godine molitve za preobrazbu i za probuđenje.
Years of preaching sermons and writing letters.
Godine propovijedanja, pisanja pisama.
And planting and watering seeds that he hoped would take root in fertile hearts.
I sadnje i zalijevanja sjemena koje će i nadao se da će ukorijeniti se u ljudskim srcima.
And this entire time, John has worked in the midst of a government that is opposing the way of Jesus.
I u cijelo to vrijeme Ivan je djelovao pod vlašću koja se protivila Isusu.
They are issuing orders and perpetrating persecution.
Oni izdaju naredbe o progonstvu.
All of that threatens to dismantle everything that he and others have worked so hard to build.
A sve je to prijetnja da razmontira sve ono na čemu se on trudio da izgradi.
And at every step along the way, John has hoped that his brothers and sisters' faith would be bigger than their fear.
I cijelim tim putem Ivan se moli da vjera njegove braće i sestara bude veća nego strah.
For 66 years, John has prayed that their hunger for righteousness would outweigh their thirst for preservation.
Već 66 godina Ivan se moli da njihova glad za pravednošću bude jača od pukog nagona za preživljavanje.
And sometimes it has, and sometimes it hasn't.
U nekim slučajevima je bilo tako, u nekima nažalost nije.
So here is this old man,
I ovdje se nalazi taj starac
exiled from his home and from his church,
koji je izgnan iz svog doma, iz svoje crkve
disallowed of the ability to shepherd the Lord's people up close.
i više nije u mogućnosti biti pastir ljudima, brinuti se o ljudima s kojima je bio blizak.
And he's marooned on an island,
Marooned.
alone.
Aha, i usamljen je na otoku.
He is still devoted,
On je i dalje predan,
but he is very, very tired.
ali je vrlo umoran.
He's confident that victory will come to the people of God,
Siguran je da će pobjeda doći Božjim ljudima,
but surely he needs reassurance that Jesus will in fact come back.
ali on treba tu sigurnost, taj znak da će se Isus vratiti.
That he will return and make it all better.
Da će se vratiti i učiniti sve boljim.
That he will set everything right, stop the evil.
I da će sve učiniti ispravnim i da će zaustaviti zlo.
And that he will begin a season when everything is good.
I da će započeti jedno doba kada će sve biti dobro.
But that time has not yet come.
Ali to doba još nije stiglo.
And so here is this old man standing out on the beach.
I ovdje taj starac stoji na plaži.
The waves are lapping at his feet.
I valovi udaraju njegove noge.
And he's praying about all of this.
I on se moli u vezi svega toga.
And as he prays, God turns the sky into a stage.
I dok se moli, Bog pretvori nebo u jednu scenu.
As John looks to the sky, he sees image after image, picture after picture, scene after scene.
I Ivan u toj sceni vidi sliku iza slike, jedno za drugim.
And the whole vision culminates with a view of heaven itself.
I cijela vizija kulminira sa samim nebom.
And as John watches all of that, surely he is overcome with awe and with hope.
I sigurno dok Ivan sve to gleda, on je zaprepašten, on je u zanesenju.
He's overcome by the overwhelming beauty of the New Jerusalem and by the joy of knowing Jesus will win.
On je preplavljen sa onim kako izgleda Novi Jeruzalem i kako će izgledati Isusova pobjeda.
And I picture John weeping with joy.
I ja vidim Ivana kako plače od radosti.
And as yet another tear falls across his wrinkled cheek,
I dok još jedna suza teče niz njegov naborani obraz,
this lonely old man concerned for the church,
taj usamljeni starac koji je zabrinut za crkvu,
death bearing down on his bent frame,
ta smrt koja je blizu, koja se nadvila nad njim,
he hears these words.
On čuje ove riječi.
Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people.
Pogledaj, Božje mjesto prebivanja je sada među ljudima.
He will wipe every tear from their eyes.
On će otrti svaku suzu iz njihovih očiju.
And there will be no more death.
I više neće biti smrti.
And as the revelation comes to an end, John writes down the very last words he hears.
I kako otkrivenje dolazi kraju, Ivan zapisuje posljednje riječi.
They're the words of Jesus himself.
To su riječi od samog Isusa.
It's just 5 words.
I radi se samo o 5 riječi.
And John loves this sentence.
A Ivan voli tu rečenicu.
And what John says in response to that last thing Jesus says,
I ono što Ivan kaže kao odgovor na tu zadnju rečenicu koju mu kaže Isus,
that's what we're going to talk about for a moment.
o tome ćemo malo razgovarati.
It's a prayer.
To je molitva.
It's an important prayer.
To je važna molitva.
And there's a good chance out of all the prayers you have prayed, you may never have prayed this one.
I velika je šansa od svih mogućih molitvi da ovu nikada još niste molili.
It's in Revelation chapter 22 and verse 20.
To je u Otkrivenju 22. poglavlje 20. redak.
It says, "He who testifies to these things," that's Jesus,
Kaže, onaj koji ovo jamči, to je Isus,
says, and these are his final words to John,
izjavljuje, i to su posljednje riječi Ivanu,
"Yes, I am coming soon."
da, dolazim uskoro.
When he says I'm coming,
A kada on kaže da dolazi,
he's talking about what we usually call the second coming.
onda to je ono što mi obično nazivamo drugim dolaskom.
The time when Jesus will return to judge the earth,
To je vrijeme kada će Isus se ponovo vratiti i suditi cijelu zemlju.
to bring human history as we know it to a close,
I onda će ljudska povijest se završiti.
and to usher all of humanity into the afterlife.
I onda će uvesti cijelo čovječanstvo u novo.
He says, "I am coming soon."
On kaže, dolazim uskoro.
This was 2,000 years ago.
To je bilo prije 2000 godina.
And so what does soon mean?
Što to onda znači uskoro?
Well, for one, God has always been very clear with his people.
Prvo, Bog je uvijek bio jasan sa svojim narodom.
His timeline is not the same as ours.
Njegova vremenska skala nije ista kao i naša.
He is operating on an entirely different scale.
On djeluje na potpuno drugačijim mjerilima.
If you watch, there's this special on Netflix right now.
Baš upravo se nešto posebno prikazuje na Netflixu.
It's about mushrooms.
Radi se o gljivama.
And in this special, there is all kinds of time-lapse photography.
I tu onda ima ta posebna usporena fotografija.
Where you can see a week of growth in 1 second.
Gdje možete vidjeti cijeli tjedan rasta te gljive u 1 sekundi.
It's like you've sped up time and watched these mushrooms grow.
Kao da si uhvatio to vrijeme kako te gljive rastu.
And then maybe you've also seen video footage in super slow motion.
I onda si mogao vidjeti video u jako usporenom.
I saw once super slow motion of a water balloon being broken.
Na primjer, kada prsne balon koji je ispunjen vodom.
And at 1 frame per every, fraction of a second, you can see the latex disappear.
I možete vidjeti u tim dijelićima sekunde kako ta guma nestaje.
While the water is still in the shape of the balloon.
A voda je još uvijek u obliku tog balona.
And in both of those, the time lapse and in the slow motion,
I ovom ubrzanom i ovom usporenom,
I love watching because it's as if I get to step outside of time.
To volim gledati jer čini mi se kao da izlazim iz vremena.
Where God is.
Tamo gdje se Bog nalazi.
He can step outside of our time frame and sees everything in super fast motion or super slow motion.
On je taj koji može izaći iz ovog našeg vremena i vidjeti ili super ubrzano ili super usporeno.
And so when he says to John, "I am coming soon,"
I onda kada kaže Ivanu, dolazim uskoro,
it may mean something different than it means to John.
Onda to može značiti nešto drugo nego što to znači Ivanu.
The big takeaway or the bottom line,
ali krajnja crta, krajnji zaključak,
is that he's coming.
Jest da on dolazi.
He's telling John and he's telling you by extension.
I on kaže Ivanu i kaže nama koji smo došli puno nakon toga.
I have not forgotten you.
Nisam te zaboravio.
I've not changed my mind.
Nisam se predomislio,
I will come again.
ja ću ponovo doći.
And when I come,
A onda kada dođem,
I will judge the world.
sudit ću svijetu,
The trumpet will sound.
trublje će se oglasiti,
The dead will rise.
mrtvi će ustati
And all of humanity will meet their maker.
i cijelo čovječanstvo će se upoznati, susrešće svog stvoritelja.
And when John hears those words,
A kada Ivan čuje te riječi,
immediately he responds.
on odmah odgovara.
He has not done this throughout the entire vision.
On to nije učinio kroz cijelo to otkrivenje.
He is not someone who watches a movie in a theater and talks the whole time.
On nije od onih koji gledaju film u kinu i onda pričaju cijelo vrijeme.
But this time he can't help it.
Ali ovog trenutka si ne može pomoći.
And he actually writes down what he says in response to Jesus' words.
I on zapisuje koji je njegov odgovor na Isusove riječi.
Jesus says, I am coming soon.
Isus kaže, dolazim uskoro.
And John says,
A Ivan kaže,
Amen. Come, Lord Jesus.
Amen. Dođi, Gospodine Isuse.
John does not say,
Ivan ne kaže,
hey, my daughter is getting married next year,
moja kćer se udaje sljedeće godine
and I'm really looking forward to walking her down the aisle.
i zaista se veselim što ću je dopratiti do
And
oltara.
so maybe 2 years from now.
Možda za neki 2 godine.
He does not say, I have a vacation planned to Switzerland.
Ne kaže, imam odmor koji sam planirao u Švicarskoj
I've always wanted to see the Alps.
i oduvijek sam želio vidjeti Alpe.
Could you delay your return?
Možeš li malo odgoditi svoj dolazak?
He also does not say,
I također ne kaže,
wait, you're coming back to judge everyone?
čekaj malo, ti dolaziš suditi svima?
That terrifies me.
To me zastrašuje.
I don't think I'm good enough yet.
Ja mislim da nisam dovoljno dobar.
You and I both know that I have some things to work on.
I ti i ja znamo da ima nekih stvari na kojima trebam raditi.
And I'm just going to need a little more time.
I ja ću trebati malo više vremena.
In other words, John does not say all of the things that we might say.
Drugim riječima, Ivan ne kaže one riječi koje bi možda većina od nas rekla.
Jesus says, I'm coming back, and immediately John says, oh, good.
Isus kaže, dolazim uskoro, a Ivan kaže, dobro.
In fact, John says, soon is not soon enough. Could you please come back now?
Zapravo Ivan kaže, uskoro nije dovoljno uskoro, jel možeš doći sada?
So here is the prayer I would challenge you and me to pray.
I ovdje je molitva koju bi vas izazvao da vi i ja molimo.
2 words.
2 riječi.
Come back.
Vrati se.
How many words is that in Croatian?
2.
Oh, perfect. Now, let me pause and ask you this.
Htio bi malo pauzirati i pitati vas.
If you were to pray, Lord, come back,
Ako bi molili, Gospodine, vrati se,
if you imagine yourself praying that,
ako možete zamisliti sebe da to molite,
that Jesus would come back right now,
da bi se Isus vratio u tom trenutku.
just as soon as he is willing to come,
Kad bude voljan doći,
how does that make you feel?
kako se sada osjećate?
Does it scare you?
A da li vas to plaši?
If I had to guess, I would guess that for a majority of Christians,
Pretpostavljam da za većinu kršćana
the answer would be yes.
Odgovor bi bio da.
It would terrify them.
To bih preplašilo, prestravilo.
But you know what's fascinating?
A znate li što je fascinantno?
This idea that the followers of Jesus would want to speed up his return
Ta ideja da sljedbenici Isusovi žele ubrzati Isusov povratak
It seems to have been the norm in the early church. It was normal.
Čini se da je to bila norma za ranu crkvu.
For instance, Paul writes to his colleague Titus,
Na primjer, Pavle piše svom kolegi Titu,
and he says that grace teaches us to live godly lives
kaže da nas milost uči da živimo pobožne živote
while we wait for the blessed hope,
dok čekamo blagoslovljenu nadu,
the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus.
Pojavljivanje slavnog spasenja našeg Gospodina Isusa Krista.
Paul talks about his impending death in a letter to his friend Timothy.
Pavle piše o svoje predstojeće smrti svom prijatelju Timoteju.
And he says this,
I on kaže ovako.
now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness,
Pripremljen mi je vijenac pravednosti,
which the Lord will award to me on that day.
koji će mi Gospodin dati tog dana.
And not only to me,
I ne samo meni,
but to all those who have longed for his appearing.
nego i svima onima koji su čeznuli za njegovim povratkom.
Finally, after telling Christians in Thessalonica about Jesus' second coming,
I na kraju, nakon što govori kršćanima u Solunu o drugom dolasku,
Paul says, therefore, encourage one another with these words.
kaže, zato ohrabrujte jedne druge sa ovim riječima.
There was actually an Aramaic phrase commonly used by early Christians.
I tu se nalazi aramejska fraza koja se vrlo često koristila kod prvih kršćana.
Maranatha.
Maranata.
You know what it means?
Da li znate što to znači?
Come, Lord.
Dođi, Gospodine.
It was a prayer for the quick return of Jesus.
To je bila molitva za brzi Isusov dolazak.
Why would they pray for this?
Zašto bi oni molili za to?
This is a good question, especially for any of us who have not prayed for the Lord to come back quickly.
To je dobro pitanje za sve nas koji nismo molili da Gospodin dođe brzo.
When I was younger, I probably would have prayed against the Lord coming quickly.
Kad sam bio mlad, ja bi vjerojatno molio protiv toga da Gospodin dođe brzo.
But I love this prayer now.
Ali sada volim tu molitvu.
And here's why.
A ovdje zašto?
The world needs to change.
Svijet se treba promijeniti.
You need to change.
Vi se trebate promijeniti.
And this prayer is a desire for the God of heaven
I ova molitva je želja Boga nebeskog
to bring about the fullness of that desperately needed change.
Da, kako bi on mogao dovesti tu očajno potrebnu promjenu.
And to do it right now.
I da to učini upravo sada.
It is a prayer of humility.
To je molitva poniznosti.
Lord, you come because I need you.
Gospodine, dođi jer ja te trebam.
It's a prayer of trust.
To je molitva povjerenja.
I think it will actually be better if you were here.
Mislim da bi bilo puno bolje da si ti ovdje.
And it's a prayer of urgency.
I to je molitva hitnosti.
I'm tired of waiting.
Umoran sam od čekanja.
A man named Robert Mounce says this in the commentary on these verses.
I čovjek imenom Robert Mounce je rekao u komentaru na ove riječi.
He says, these words are a confession
Ove riječi su ispovijed.
that the answers to the problems of life
Odgovori na životne probleme
do not lie in mankind's ability to create a better world.
do not lie.
They are not found in man's ability to create a better world.
Nisu nađene u ljudskim sposobnostima da stvore bolji svijet.
Instead, they are found in the return of the one named Jesus.
Umjesto toga nađene su u povratku onoga koji se zove Isus.
The prayer come back
Ta molitva dođi ponovo
is the prayer you pray if you're tired of hurting.
Je molitva ako si umoran od povreda.
It's a prayer you pray if you're tired of being alone.
To je molitva kad si umoran od toga da si usamljen.
That's a prayer you pray if you're tired of people being sick.
I molitva kada si umoran od molitve za bolesne.
That's a prayer you pray if you're tired of the world being broken.
I kada si umoran od toga da je ovaj svijet slomljen.
It's the prayer you pray when you are confronted by one truth.
To je molitva koju moliš kada si suočen sa jednom istinom.
This is wrong and I cannot fix it.
Ovo je u krivu, a ja to ne mogu popraviti.
Things could be better and I can't make them better.
Stvari mogu biti bolje, a ja ih ne mogu učiniti boljima.
It's a prayer you pray to someone powerful who you trust.
I to je molitva koju moliš nekom moćnom kojem vjeruješ.
This is hard for us because we're proud.
To je nama teško zato jer smo ponosni.
We know the world needs to change,
Mi znamo da svijet treba promjenu,
but sometimes we're convinced that we can change it.
ali ponekad smo uvjereni da mi ga možemo promijeniti.
I know I need to change,
I znam da ja se moram promijeniti,
but I think I can change me if I try hard enough.
ali ja mislim da se mogu promijeniti ako dovoljno naporno radim na tome.
But I cannot try hard enough.
Ali ne mogu se dovoljno jako truditi.
I cannot change the world.
Ja ne mogu promijeniti svijet.
I cannot fix this,
Ja ne mogu popraviti ovo.
and neither can you.
A ne možete ni vi.
The church cannot fix this.
Crkva ne može popraviti ovo.
The church saves no one.
Crkva ne može spasiti nikoga.
Only the Savior does that.
To čini samo spasitelj.
This prayer is just an admission of reality.
Ova molitva je samo potvrda realnosti.
It's also a prayer you only pray if you trust Christ.
I ona je moguća jedino ako vjeruješ Kristu.
Asking Him to come back and judge the world
Tako što ga tražiš da se vrati i da sudi svijetu
is something you would be crazy to ask for,
je nešto što treba bi biti lud da to tražiš.
unless you are confident down in your bones
Osim ako si toliko siguran do same svoje srži
in the grace of God.
u Božju milost.
This is an act of humility,
Ovo je čin poniznosti,
an act of trust,
čin povjerenja
and an act of urgency.
i čin hitnosti.
It's a prayer you pray when you're tired of waiting.
I to je molitva kada si umoran od čekanja.
Jesus, come back.
Isuse, vrati se.
And so there's John. He's 90 years old.
I tu je Ivan, 90 godina star.
He's tired of people getting it wrong.
I umoran je toga da ljudi krivo shvaćaju.
He's tired of getting it wrong himself.
I umoran je toga i da sam krivo shvaća.
He would write in his letters, little children,
On bi pisao svojim pismima, djeco moje,
love one another.
volite jedni druge.
And sometimes they would,
I ponekad bi,
and so often they would not.
ali toliko često ne bi.
John had tried to help them.
Ivan im je pokušao pomoći.
He'd given his whole life to that.
On je dao cijeli svoj život njima,
But it just hasn't happened in its fullness yet.
ali još se nije dogodilo u svojoj punini.
And so when he's standing there on the beach,
I dok on stoji tamo na plaži, na obali,
and the clear waters of the Aegean are rolling over his wrinkled toes,
i bistre more Egejskog mora, bistre vode Egejskog mora zapljuskuju njegove stare noge.
and the risen Christ looks at him and says to him, "Yes, John, I'm coming soon."
I uskrsli Krist mu se pojavlja i kaže mu, da Ivane, dolazim uskoro.
John's heart leaps.
I Ivanovo srce se rastopi
And he says, "May it be so.
i onda kaže, neka bude tako.
Come, Lord Jesus."
Dođi, Gospodine Isuse.
Of course he does.
Naravno da tako čini.
And if we are followers of that same Jesus,
I ako smo mi sljedbenici tog istog Isusa,
doesn't it make sense for us to do the same?
zar to onda ima smisla da i mi isto tako činimo?
This is not necessarily a prayer to change the Lord's timing.
To nije nužno molitva kako bi se promijenio Božje vrijeme.
Although maybe we would like for it to change.
Ili možda mi bi htjeli da se to promijeni.
But it's really an embracing of His timing and His purpose.
Ali to je prihvaćanje njegovog vremena i njegove svrhe.
Can you imagine what it will be like when He comes back?
Možete li zamisliti kako će to biti kada se on vrati?
Every wrong put right.
Sve što je krivo bit će ispravljeno.
Every promise fulfilled.
Svako obećanje će biti ispunjeno.
All of our faith made sight.
I sva naša vjera će postati vidljiva.
So, how about we pray this prayer right now?
I kako bi bilo da ovu molitvu molimo upravo sada?
I think as we do, we will be in good company.
I mislim da ako ćemo to činiti, onda ćemo biti u dobrom društvu.
So would you bow with me as we pray?
Zato, hoćete li se nakloniti glave dok se molite sa mnom?
Jesus, come back.
Isuse, vrati se.
It feels like so much is wrong.
Vidimo da je toliko toga krivo.
We want you to come and to set it right.
Mi želimo da ti dođeš i da sve ispraviš.
Some of us feel like we're not ready to meet you.
Neki od nas osjećaju kao da nisu spremni susresti se s tobom.
We feel like we're too sinful.
Mislimo da smo previše grešni.
And we are sinful.
I jesmo grešni.
But you are the washer of sins.
Ali ti si taj koji pereš grijehe.
You are the eraser of guilt and shame.
Ti brišeš svaku krivnju i sram.
Give us a real and living hope.
Daj nam stvarnu i živu nadu.
A hope that the grace we have experienced from you so far
Nadu koju smo iskusili od tebe do sada
will be exactly what we encounter when we meet you in the air.
i da će to biti upravo ono što ćemo susresti kada se susretnemo s tobom u oblacima.
And for those who have not given their lives to you yet,
A za one koji još ti nisu predali svoje živote,
may they do so soon.
neka oni to čine ubrzo.
And may we be a reason for them to come home.
I neka mi budemo taj razlog da se oni vrate kući.
Thank you for the hope we have.
Hvala ti za nadu koju imamo.
A hope that keeps us going as we wait.
Nadu koja nas vodi dalje dok čekamo.
Jesus, come back
Isuse, vrati se.
so that we don't have to wait too long.
Tako da mi ne moramo čekati predugo.
Amen.
Amen.